There's been international outcry about the assassination of the leader of Eswatini's pro-democracy movement. Human rights lawyer Thulani Maseko was shot through the window of his home on Saturday night. Amnesty International believes his killings linked to his defense of human rights, the last absolute monarchy in Africa. He was an outspoken critic of the regime and in 2021 told France 24 that he feared for the safety of opponents of the government.
I'm not worried for myself. I'm worried for those people who in the middle of the night, the government sends the army and the police to torture. For myself, I think I'm covered towards, maybe I'm one of those people, who are in the leadership. And I think the strategy of the government now is not to target overtly those people who are in the leadership, but to instill more fear on those people who have accepted the call for change. So I'm not worried for myself.
Eswatini has fiercely denied any connection to Maseko's death. Nadine Theron tells us more.
There has been some activist movements based in Eswatini who has overtly stated in statements that his death can be blamed on state agents. But besides those accusations, we know that Maseko was one of the most outspoken critics of the king and the monarchy. And the political tension in Eswatini has been increasing since 2021 when these pro-democracy protests started. And Maseko was at the head of a pro-democracy movement, the multi-stakeholder forum. Not only that, he had a court challenge against the king for changing the country's name, and he had been imprisoned before for criticizing the government. So although he didn't believe that he would be a target of the government, he certainly was an enemy of the king. And the king, a few hours before Maseko was killed, the king Mswati warned those calling for democracy that mercenaries would deal with them. So that statement made by the king in his speech got a lot of people thinking that Maseko maybe was one of the first people that the king sent his mercenaries to deal with. But of course, the government is denying it, and they said that the investigation will be transparent. And they never had a problem with him because he was always peaceful and he always just wanted negotiations and engagements and dialogue. So the government says he was never a person of special interest to them.
We heard him express a little earlier on there his own concerns about his country. Just why is the question of human rights in Eswatini such a touchy subject?
Well, the fact that the country is in a dictatorship because of its monarchy makes human rights hard to enforce. And King Mswati's government has been accused of using excessive force and the threats of violence against any opposition or pro-democracy activists or any critics, like Maseko was jailed for being a critic. And the king's military has been cracking down on all the protesters and the pro-democracy movement. Dozens of people have been killed since 2021 and hundreds have been injured. We don't even know how many. And all Maseko really wanted was an inclusive national dialogue, which hasn't even happened. President Cyril Ramaphosa convinced Mswati to just have an inclusive dialogue in 2021, and that hasn't even happened. The Amnesty International has said that Maseko's death follows a spate of attacks on opposition leaders and pro-democracy activists. Maseko was representing two members of parliament who were imprisoned for terrorism just because they supported democracy. So besides that, the country also has other human rights problems. They don't have good, strong women's rights. LGBTQ people don't have any rights, and there's impunity for security forces. And this is all because there's no democracy, and the king has the absolute last word in everything in that country.